Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter, of course, at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Thursday's edition of the dceu Daily. And Robert Pattinson has confirmed that he and Zoe Kravitz will attend DC Fandome. Of course, DC Fandome is the newly founded convention for all things DC Comics that comes out every year. It started last year. It came out because of the pandemic. Great idea by Ann Sarnoff, Jim Lee and Walter Hamada, and it really captured the imagination last year. So what did Robert Pattinson actually say? Well, he said that he and Zoe Kravitz have done some fun things for DC Fandome, and there'll be a few little surprises as well. Now, we really didn't need Rob to tell us this. It was pretty obvious. They're really going to be overly promoting this. Not that you can overly promote a Batman movie at DC Fandome. It's the next DC live-action movie, and we're all extremely excited about it. And of course, ever since we heard the reactions and responses to that test screening, we've all been so excited, especially the reveal of the huge mic drop moment at the end, which I believe is Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Keep this as a receipt because I could be wrong, of course. Next year, you just don't understand. You lot just don't understand how huge next year is for DC live action. This is the year that we drown out the MCU is the bestest ever. We are going to be saying the DCEU, the DC live action universe, is the bestest ever. So that's Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, who have done some fun things for DC Fandome. Now, the main conversation I want to talk about today is David Ayer, the Ayer cut, and his big future with DC live action. We've discussed this before, but I want to get in there with more detail because I saw a video yesterday of Will Smith answering some fan questions. He was asked why he wasn't in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. He said it was scheduling. And he said, well, you know, Idris Elba didn't play Deadshot, did he? And the answer was no. He goes, well then, I can come back. Look, Will Smith won't come back for anyone but David Ayer. They have a very, very, tight relationship creatively. So what I foresee happening at DC Fandome is David Ayer's Ayer cut of The Suicide Squad being announced for HBO Max. And I don't think anything else will be announced, but you never know. But I believe that he will get offshoots on HBO Max of his Suicide Squad movie and his Suicide Squad characters. And I think the first obvious offshoot to do is with his good friend Will Smith's Deadshot, a movie, a limited series. I think that's what we'll get first, So why is David Ayer going to get the Ayer cut? Why do I believe he's going to be able to embrace his movie and do these spin-offs and offshoots from it? Well, he's been a very good little puppy. He supported James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. He's been literally like the biggest WB fanboy online, and he's been doing this for a reason. He's played ball. He's done the very opposite of what Zack Snyder did when his Snyder Cut was announced and greenlit. Zack Snyder and Ray Fisher decided to go out to town with some revenge. They felt revenge was the best dish served cold, so they exposed lots of things about WB. Ultimately, it didn't go down well. AT&T and Jason Kilar really wanted to restore the Snyderverse, but Snyder and Fisher left them with very little choice but to disband that idea, and that's why it became, it wasn't episodes anymore. It was going to be a movie. That's what happened. I've told you this on multiple occasions. You can take that to the bank, of course. But David Ayer has basically done things very, very differently. He's acted very supportively towards the studio. The other week, calling it his home studio. People criticising him within the fandom, saying they're disappointed in him. But at the end of the day, will you be disappointed if the Ayer cut is announced at DC Fandome? I don't think you will you? Because this is how you win. in Hollywood. Now, Snyder found a different way of winning. He exposed them for what they did to him. He got his cut thanks to us and thanks to HBO Max, the streaming service that desperately needed launching with something big, because in my opinion they launched a year too early. You know, so he thought, well, I've got it now. And clearly he took a gamble, didn't get the Snyder Cut, the Snyderverse restored, but he served out some cold dish of revenge, and that's how he felt, and that's his truth. I love Snyder, I love his DC movies, you know I do, but I speak in balance, I speak in truths, and that is the truth. And David Ayer decided to go another way about it. And you know, I think David Ayer's done things the right way, because it looks like we're getting the Ayer cut. Everyone seems to believe we're getting the Ayer cut. Listen, this will be huge. This will be absolutely huge. And of course, this will give you know, fans within the Restore the Snyderverse community hope that we can restore the Snyderverse. Who knows? Never give up. That's my advice to people out there. Never give up. But I think, as I say, David Ayer's done things the right way, and I believe not only will we get the Ayer cut, but if we all support the Ayer cut on HBO Max. I can't support it on HBO Max because HBO Max ain't bloody available to me. But by God, I will buy it on Prime Video when it's available. By God, I will buy the DVD, the Blu-ray and the Blu-ray 4K to show my support to David. And then if we all support the Ayer cut, and I really do believe we're going to get it, and I really do believe it will be announced at DC Fandome, I could be wrong. You know, all I can do is tell you what I'm hearing as a YouTuber that talks about this stuff, and people talk to me, right? I believe we're getting it. And I believe in the future, David Ayer will be able to write and direct his own offshoots from that very film. And I believe Deadshot will be the first spin-off we will get. Very encouraging that Will Smith said, I can still play the character. That means he still wants to play the character. Now, I don't know what kind of Deadshot we get in the Ayer cut, and hopefully we will soon find out. But even in the theatrical version, he was brilliant. His whole arc, his whole hatred towards Batman, that really worked for me. One of my favourite scenes from the theatrical version of Suicide Squad is when he's in the alleyway and he's got the opportunity to shoot Batman and his daughter stands in the way. It's a very provocative, emotional, compelling scene. And at that point of the DCEU, we're still in the very early stages of Zack's vision and Zack's arc. I think it's great because I think the Suicide Squad, the first Suicide Squad movie, even the theatrical cut, shows the connectivity that we had in the DCEU in its first 3 movies. From Man of Steel to BVS, from BVS to the Suicide Squad. That's a great example how to create an interconnected universe. We get the Flash, we get Batman on multiple occasions, and we get a post-credit scene, one of the most iconic comic book movie moments I've ever seen, of Bruce Wayne visiting Amanda Waller, and it's really, really great. I also prefer Amanda Waller in the theatrical version of the first Suicide Squad than I did in the second movie done by James Gunn. James Gunn took some of the prowess away from her in the name of comedy, and that's the problem with James Gunn. I like the Suicide Squad. I think Amanda Waller was okay in that movie. She was still quite, you know, she had that kind of darkness to her. She had that menace to her, but I still think she's more menacing in the first Suicide Squad movie. I believe she means what she says, that she's willing to kill people, which she does. And she does press that little button in their heads in the early stages of the movie. I get that. But I do prefer her in the first Suicide Squad movie, and that's just me being honest. I mean, could there be potential for an Amanda Waller, Viola Davis, you know, Suicide Squad spin-off written and directed by David Ayer? Well, at the end of the day, you know, nobody gives David Ayer credit. I mean, James Gunn did say this himself. You know, the casting for some of these characters, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, genius. Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, genius. Will Smith as Deadshot, genius. All the castings were great. So David Ayer was certainly the right man to do a Suicide Squad movie, and finally, when we hopefully get to see the Ayer cut, we can make our own minds up. Because I think that's ever so important, to be able to make our own minds up. At this moment in time where, or not us, but people on the internet and other people, the mainstream audience, are judging him on a piece of work that really isn't his work. And that's a shame, because David Ayer does deserve better. He's a very, very talented storyteller and filmmaker. And, you know, I actually love the original Suicide Squad movie, even though it's not really David Ayer's piece of work. And that's sad, but I do like that movie. I don't really have an issue about it, but David did make a mistake. Jared Leto's Joker should have been the villain of that movie, and he's not even the villain of that movie as far as I know in the Ayer cut. And he came out on Twitter when it was first released and admitted that Joker should have been the villain. Enchantress wasn't that bad of a villain, but she was her motivations, there wasn't many motivations there. The side of the June Moon character of Enchantress was really good, and her relationship with Rick Flag worked, but the other side of it, she wasn't a great Enchantress. So that's just my opinion, of course. So I think if Joker, you know, was the main villain, and apparently in the Ayer cut, he does a deal with Enchantress, which would make her a little bit more interesting if she's got some scenes with Jared Leto's Joker. So we can only judge it when we see it. Always judge something when you see it. Don't prejudge situations, because you always end up being wrong. You could be right, but you don't know. I mean, before I saw it, I thought Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn was going to be a sensational movie, and it wasn't. Unfortunately so. I thought it was a great opportunity to give Harley her stage, to give us the Birds of Prey, and it was done by people with, let's just say, extremist political views, and whenever you deal with people like that, they're not going to deliver you great entertainment, because great entertainment isn't important to them, and that's a shame. So, number one, I believe we're going to get an Ayer cut announcement, and I believe very soon after that we will get David Ayer written and directed offshoot movies on HBO Max, a limited series from his original Suicide Squad movie. I hope this happens, because I think it's going to be really, really awesome. Ever since I've heard about the DCEU multiverse strategy, which we're getting from the Flash movie next year, or maybe we'll get it, kind of some hints of it early on, maybe in the Batman and the other movies. We'll have to wait and see. But I was watching What If yesterday, and the episode found another way of the Avengers defeating Thanos. And I think, is this really what you want from a multiverse strategy? If you think about it, shouldn't Thanos have defeated the Avengers in this Elseworld multiversal story? Because it's not the central universe, it's just a piece of animation. It doesn't matter, right? So maybe the bad guy could have won on this one Earth, instead of the Avengers finding another way, boring, put the kettle on, of defeating Thanos. So, and this is what I want to see from the DCEU multiverse. And yesterday we were discussing the potential of General Zod being in the Flash movie. And what my little theory and idea was that what if Zod in the Flashpoint universe is Superman? He's the hero, right? He came to Earth instead of Kal-El. Kal-El's somewhere, being hidden somewhere, but you know, General Zod is the hero of Earth instead of Superman. Isn't that better for a multiversal Elseworld story, rather than finding another way for the heroes to win? But isn't this the problem with storytellers these days? The good guys have to win. Everybody has to be kind and compassionate. You know, be kind, be kind. Well, I agree with that in the real world, but in the fictional world, we don't have to do that. And I think if you're going to do a multiversal strategy, be fun, be random. You know, light that blue touch paper and do something really exciting with it, instead of, you know, just, I think that's the problem with Disney, isn't it? And I think WB and DC don't have to have that problem, so to speak. They can do some interesting things with this Flash movie. They really can. And I think if General Zod is in this movie, and I suspect that he is, he maybe could be the hero in the Flashpoint universe. Interesting. Or he could just be the villain. Again, it's interesting if it's done the right way. We'll have to wait and see. But what I want to see from this multiverse strategy in the DCEU and the DC live action universe are different things. Because a multiverse strategy allows you creatively so much potential. And I think that's the exciting thing about it. You can take these existing DCEU characters we've already seen in several films and do something different with them. You could do something extremely different with Harley Quinn. Maybe she remains, on one of the Earths, remains Harleen Quinzel. She never becomes Harley Quinn. She, remains a psychiatrist. She helps people. Maybe that's her character, right? Now, it doesn't sound very interesting, but it's something different. Because in Elseworlds, people's fates should be different. Now, Flashpoint isn't really part of the multiverse. Flashpoint is a world, and basically it's Barry's Earth recreated. I always give you the Back to the Future 2 analogy. Back to the Future 2, not Barry, but Marty McFly, because of the thing with the sporting almanac, and by old Biff stealing it from him, changes the Earth that Marty's from. And that's what Flashpoint is. I want to be very, very clear about this. It's Earth 1 that changes and becomes Flashpoint. It's still Earth 1, but it becomes Flashpoint. So this is what you're going to see in this movie. So this is very interesting, if you think about it. So after Barry goes back to the past to save his mother, and then goes back to his Earth, he's changed it. He's changed the history by saving his mum, by even going back to the past, right? He changes elements of Earth 1. And we're going to see those. So when we go back and Flashpoint is enacted on Earth 1, all of a sudden, Sasha Calle is Supergirl. Maybe there's a Justice League there, maybe there's not. We don't know what the threat's going to be. So things are going to be very different. But I want to, because I hear people saying different things. This is not another Earth on the multiverse. This is Earth 1, but it's gone to hell. It's gone to hell. Everything's different. And that's the whole point. So in the graphic novel of Flashpoint, there's something called what is it called? The treadmill, the Speed Force treadmill, whatever it's called, right? And that's what Barry uses. And I don't know if he's going to have something like this in this movie. We're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, I want to be clear about that. When Barry goes back to save his mother, he changes Earth 1. He goes back to Earth 1, but it's fucked. It's gone to hell. And that's exactly like Back to the Future 2. It's a great concept, if you ask me. I mean, it's a great graphic novel, and let's hope that Andy Muschietti and Christina Hodgson have done it justice. I expect that they have. Listen, when you even mention Flashpoint, because it's an iconic graphic novel, there's already a lot of pressure on you. But when you announce this is the film that restarts the whole franchise and reboots the whole franchise, you're under so much pressure already. And so, yeah, just wanted to make that clear. But with the multiverse, there's so many things you can do. And I think when you're doing a multiverse strategy, you should always think outside the box, because there's just so many things you can do. And it doesn't mean you have to, visit all these different Earths, but I think Barry will visit. Now, I don't know how this happens, by the way, because I don't think this happens in the Flashpoint graphic novel or animated movie, but somehow while he's traveling, he arrives on different Earths, and different versions of these DC characters will be witnessed by Barry. So this is very, very interesting. So they're doing a bit of that. So what they're going to do, they're going to display their multiverse, their different they're different versions of Earth. So this means we can see the Donnerverse, which is Brandon Routh's Earth, right? We can see Arrowverse. Apparently Grant Gusting's The Flash will cameo. Maybe we'll get a few Arrowverse characters as well. I don't know, how big Grant's role will be in this film. I do believe he's involved, and I can't wait for them to be reunited, because that whole thing on the Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earths, when Ezra turned up as his Barry Allen, was so shocking to me and so beautiful, and it was great. And that just showed you, that was them saying, this is what we're going to be doing a lot of from Flashpoint and after Flashpoint. That makes things very, very exciting. It was the biggest surprise in, comic book live action history as far as I'm concerned, because these days nothing's bloody a secret, but nobody saw that coming, and it just proves these people can keep secrets when they really want to. So that started off this relationship between these two Flashes, and they will be reunited in November 2022, and I can't wait. But as I say, I don't know how big a role Grant's got. Is it a cameo? Because let's not forget, most of his time is spent making the TV series. I would love them to work together, to have two different treadmills and having to run together to change things back. I'd love to see lots of Grant. I'd love Grant to get his own DC live action movie and movies and limited series as well. But this all depends on how long the Flash series lasts. Some people think it will be cancelled after season 8. Some people think it will go on. These are interesting things. These are interesting things that are really exciting. Injecting a Supergirl into a Flashpoint movie is really exciting. As long as you don't, delete Superman and put her in his place. We don't want anyone replacing anyone, but we need a live action Supergirl. Melissa Benoist is a great live action Supergirl. Hopefully we see her in the Flash movie as well. She's great. It's the series that she's been in that's not so great. Oh, I did see a clip from an episode the other day, actually. It was actually quite good on YouTube. And I was really, really surprised, by the way. But anyway, enough about that. So, listen, there's so many versions of these, of these DC characters. Because, since Superman the movie, these different versions of these characters have been there. So, the multiverse has kind of been there unofficially. And now it's time to say, well, we can go to the Doom Patrol universe, we can go to the Titans universe, we can meet these characters, and I think we will meet all these characters in Flashpoint. Maybe Lucifer can be in the Flash movie, who knows? I mean, he was in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean, great of Tom Ellis to be involved, because the Lucifer show was still very much an active TV show now, but it's not. So I would love Tom Ellis to do more within the DC live action universe. Again, these are the type of things that you can do. The business of comic book movies and live action is to make money and to entertain, by the way. It's a double-edged sword, and we've discussed this so many times. Interactions, cameos, Easter eggs, connectivity is what people want to see. Now, you can do your offshoots, your standalone offshoots, and that's fine. It's a balance. It's not about just what you want. It's about what everyone wants. You get your thing, right? Maybe you wanted Suicide Squad. Maybe you love Harley. You got that. But you can't just expect them to keep on giving you that. There's lots of DC fans who want different things. And this is what a multiverse strategy does. And you will hear a lot of these conversations during this year's DC Fandome, as we had in last year's DC Fandome. I'm ready to go now. I'm ready for DC Fandome. I'm ready for next year's 4 live action movies through the theatrical system, and Batgirl, and Blue Beetle. And who knows if Green Lantern Corps will be ready to go next year. Peacemaker. There was an image of Peacemaker. It was just the back of Peacemaker, not really worth talking about it, but it's there. I thought I'd mention it. But people like Peacemaker. I like John Cena's Peacemaker. I love the Suicide Squad. I want to inject the whole of the DC live action universe in my veins. And if I get an overdose, I get an overdose. Next year's very exciting, because they're really making a bold decision here in what they're doing. And as I've also said before, what they've done ever since the Snyder Cut's been released, by announcing these big projects and really going for it, really going for this new look DC live action universe, has been really, really successful for them. and I think has excited a lot of us, if not all of us, because obviously there's a lot of Snyderverse fandoms. I'm a Snyderverse fan, but I'm not just biased towards one director. I love DC as a whole, as you all know, so this is incredibly exciting. And I'm really looking forward to DC fandom and what's going to happen next year. And this is huge. And when I see next year's movies and TV shows and all of it, even Super Pets, I think it's all very, very exciting. And I think as a DC fan, if you can't get motivated for this, then what can you get motivated for? Maybe the restoration of the Snyderverse. Me, if I was in charge, you know, the Snyderverse would never have been dumped. I don't care if Snyder is a nightmare to fucking work with. He's a genius, right? And there's people who are willing to pay a hell of a lot of money for his content. I mean, as I've spoken about Rebel Moon, this is going to be the big thing for him and Netflix next year. It'll be interesting how it's received. I think it's huge. I think it's huge. You know, Snyder's literally doing a Star Wars movie that's not a Star Wars movie. He's creating his own Star Wars. He may do a better job with Star Wars than the people running Star Wars right now. So that's unrelated to the DCEU, but I'm very hyped for Rebel Moon. Snyder's a genius. He knows what he's doing. Like him, I'm a fan of Norse, is it Norse or Morse? Norse mythology, that's it, yeah. I'm a big fan of that as well. But yeah, I would never have dumped Snyder. I've spoken at a balance about Snyder and his conduct during the release of the Snyder Cut. I don't agree with everything that he and Fisher did, but he delivered a great movie, and Justice League is one of the best CBMs ever made, and you don't disband talent like that, no matter how you think about it. But anyway, you know, even without Snyder, there's a lot of excitement. I don't think this is totally the end of the Snyderverse. I've also discussed in the past couple of days how I feel they will take his story arc from Justice League 2 and Justice League 3 and implement it in different DC live action movies like Wonder Woman 3 and maybe even Flashpoint. I think they're the two films they're looking to put it in, because that story isn't just Snyder's story. This is something that was constructed with Jim Lee, Jeff Johns and Zack Snyder. They worked together on this Justice League trilogy. Those three people worked together creatively. It wasn't just Zack Snyder and Terrio working on their own here. And I think that's why they're allowed to use this stuff. Now, maybe this is not something that Snyderverse fans want to see, because it will make it harder for Zack to make his Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. But I think we can see right now that Zack's busy. His Army of the Dead prequel begins. Obviously, he got the actor who played the Safecracker. He's directing that. He's starring in it. I've loved the trailers. I'm excited for that. Rebel Moon's coming. So Zack's going to be busy for the short term. So it's not really something that can happen right now anyway. But my whole point was at the beginning of this conversation that the multiverse is something where anything is possible. And that's why I like it, right? On this earth, I might be a bald, shaven guy in a blue, snazzy shirt doing YouTube videos. On another earth, I may be fucking king. On another earth, I may be a tramp begging for food and money, right? That's how you look at it. Yet don't make characters the same on each earth or it's boring. We're even going to meet another version of Ezra Miller's Barry Allen. He could be totally different, doing different things. He may not even be the Flash on that earth. We have seen kind of leaked kind of footage of two versions of Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller. That's going to be in this Flash movie. These are the kind of things you can do with a multiverse strategy. It just captures the imagination and it excites people, and you can represent different versions of these DC characters that we've already seen in live action. People like Brandon Routh, you know, people like Tyler Hoechlin, who I believe we may see in the Flash movie. The Flash movie is huge. It really is, and the closer we get to it, the more the kind of, I suppose, the expectation gets bigger and bigger. And sometimes when the expectation is so high, you can be disappointed. I just got a feeling we're not going to be disappointed by this movie. I think this movie holds the key to the future of the DC live action universe, so they really have no choice but to get it right. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. And I will see you in tomorrow's DCEU Daily yet again. We'll be talking more DCEU and maybe some big news may drop. Who knows? Whatever happens, same time, same place tomorrow. Comment, like, share and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow.